So my name is Jason Crean. I am the Mid-Eastern Regional Director for AFA, and I want to welcome everybody this morning. And it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Robin Shewokis. She is a fantastic personality. We've known her for many years. She has been a huge AFA supporter, and besides being a snappy dresser and having impeccable taste, she is an enrichment specialist. She has worked with companion pet owners and zoos for many, many years. She is now officially the president-elect of the IAATE, an International Association of Avian Trainers and Educators. So without further ado, you're in for a real treat because you are in Extreme Makeover, Aviary Edition.
Thank you. Okay, the silent thing is not going to work for me. But don't tell Carol I told you that, all right? The more participation, the better. So I need to welcome you all to Extreme Makeover Aviary Edition. We all need a little change every now and then, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about today, how to make your lives a bit easier. Let me ask first, how many of you are companion parrot owners? And how many of you are breeders or aviculturists? Okay. So we need to combine and we need to make things just easier in general for everybody, all right? That's the point of today. And if you have suggestions or ideas, they are more than welcome, all right? So you willing to participate?
Yes.
Have you had coffee?
Yes.
Are you awake?
Yes.
All right, okay, let's go. So extreme, yes, it can be extreme. Making changes can be extreme. It can be uncomfortable for some. Is it difficult? No, it doesn't have to be. You can make things easier. You just have to kind of go with the flow and figure out, make a plan. So to go from empty to interesting, not saying that everything's empty or that your aviaries are empty, but sometimes we get to the point where it's same old, I'm gonna go with the way it's been, I'm gonna keep it this way, it's easier this way. Has anybody ever said those kind of things to them? Yeah, okay. So we need to forget that mentality for today. And then when you go forward from here, hopefully you'll carry it out with you and do some new things. We want to offer activities that enhance daily living, okay? We talk about having birds in captivity. We fight with different organizations that say we shouldn't have birds in captivity. And what we need to do is we need to show those organizations and those folks that are saying no that we're doing it well and that we're doing it right. So we need to make sure that we're offering them a beautiful picture, a picture of what life for our birds in captivity can be. Okay, so are we all agreed that that's the face that we want to put out there? That's what we're looking for. And we want to meet standards. And I put here standards that have been held in zoos for years. Zoos, there are some things that they're way behind, but there are other things that they're really working on, and enrichment's one of them. And departments, especially the bird departments in zoos, have for years had standards of what you need to do for education, what you need to do for enrichment. And I think we need to adopt some of that. We need to bring that into the avicultural world so that we know that we're providing a great setting for our birds, okay? And the other thing is we need to remember that, yeah, it does need to be productive, okay? We can't put that aside, that's reality. It needs to work for us. So we need to meld the two together. So, here's the story, right? Makeover, I don't need that. It's worked for years. Why should I change anything? Don't you get bored? No? I do. I get tired of the same old. And I want things to be a little different. So you need to consider the possibilities. At least tell me that you're going to think about it. You're going to take some of this, take it home, and consider how it might work for you. Not everything's going to work for you, okay? And this is something I always tell people when I speak. I don't care who's standing up here in front of you, whether it's Jean or whether it's Mark or whoever it is. Listen, and then take away what works for you. And be willing to change a little bit, okay? And it can be easier. Oh, but that's extra work. Providing enrichment's extra work. Thinking about what I want to provide, that's extra work. A little bit, but in the long run, it will make things easier and more efficient. When you think about how you're going to do things, think about how you're going to do it efficiently. This shouldn't be some grand project that's going to take you days and days to complete. If it is, if you got vacation time coming, it might be good. But otherwise, it's got to be efficient. And maybe it might be a little more fun. We're all about the fun, right? This is a passionate group of people who love what they do, who are thrilled with the fact that they're making birds' lives better. And they're making, excuse me, for the breeders, they're making companion parrot owners' lives better. You're bringing a quality product to these individuals who are companion parrot owners. So now let's add to it. Let's enhance that captive life and make it just a little bit better. So we need a project manager. We're going to do an extreme makeover. We need a project manager. So that's all of you. I'm hoping you'll all apply for the job of project manager. You need to be creative. Are you creative? Yeah. Okay. Are you organized? That's a biggie. I'm not. I admit it. But I expect you to be because you're going to work on my project. So I want you to be organized. You've got to have a working knowledge of the animals in your collection. If you're a single bird owner, then you need to know that bird inside and out. You need to know their history. You need to know where they're coming from. You need to know what their past experiences have been. You know, if you've got a bird that was in a horrible situation, that had a cage that was flooded with a ridiculous amount of toys, then maybe you don't want to do that. If that wasn't a good situation, if you got behaviors that you didn't really like, you want to consider whether you're going to do that again or not. And you have to know how to combine work and fun. You've got to have those smiles going on, okay? This should not be an arduous task. It's an extreme makeover, but it doesn't need to be a bad thing. So I put in here a little bit of basic enrichment philosophy. A lot of you have heard me speak before, so this is a review. Hopefully you weren't sleeping the last time I did it. You want to enhance the quality of life for captive animals. Your enrichment needs to be goal-based. What are you trying to get out of this? If you throw something in a cage and you have no reason to do it except, "Ooh, this is cool," I don't know if that's a good idea. There's got to be a goal to it. Do you want to increase a behavior? Do you want to decrease a behavior? What do you want to get out of it? What is it doing for your birds? Okay? To just go to the store and buy that toy because it's got a cute face on it. I used to make toys like that. I used to wood burn toys with little smiley faces. Really? Who was that for? And I call that the people factor. The person that has the wallet that's paying for the toys. The bird doesn't care. Okay? It's got to be functional. It's got to have a goal to it. You need to address naturalistic behaviors. We're not putting birds on bikes, hopefully, anymore. We're doing things that reflect what these birds would be doing in the wild. Otherwise, you've created this little creature that's not doing any of the things it should be doing. You know, you can't maybe replicate the exact experience that your bird would have had in the wild, but you can come close. You can offer enrichment that mirrors what they would be doing. So you need to know the natural history. How many of you have the book Forshaw's Parrots of the World? If you don't, I would suggest gifting it to yourself for the next holiday. It's well worth it. It gives you a nice starting place as far as natural history is concerned. Variety is crucial, okay? This does not mean that you need to offer hundreds of different things. It just means if something's in there and it's not being used in the cage or the aviary, then it's cage furniture and you don't really need it. You might need to modify it, but that's your job to observe and decide what needs to be modified. Scheduling decreases aviculturist stress. Okay, so we've all got that level of stress. Got to get it done. Got to get my work done today. Got to get to this, that, and the other. Everybody else, is everybody over scheduled out there? You're not? Can you come by the booth and tell me how you do that? Because I haven't figured that one out yet. We need to talk about lowering your stress level. And doing a schedule, doing an enrichment schedule, gives you, it's right there. You get up, oh, this is what I'm going to do today. Or this is what I'm going to do the next couple of days. This is my schedule for the week. If it's all down, it makes life so much easier. Offer choices. Please don't ever offer any kind of enrichment that your bird does not have a choice whether to interact with it or not. You don't ever want to put enrichment in the way of a food bowl without a means of escape. International Association of Avian Trainers and Educators has done a monthly challenge. We give our members, or anybody who comes to the Facebook page, we give them a item to use for that month, and then they need to be creative and come up with new enrichment. If you guys haven't checked it out, you should. It's a nice, some nice new ideas, but some of the entries sometimes don't allow the birds an option. And what you're doing then is you're increasing the stress level on your birds. They need to have that opportunity to get away, or to avoid, or to just simply not interact with what you're offering. It's about choice. We take away a lot of choices by having them in captivity in the first place. So now you need to put some of those back, okay? And be patient. It doesn't always work immediately. And don't do the, well, I put it in there and they didn't do anything, and it's just a waste of time. I put it all down this whole row of cages, and they're not using it. Give it a little bit of time. You know, it's that, ladies or gentlemen, I don't know, when you go and buy that new dress and you think, I'm going to wear that. I love it. Don't be giggling. And you get it home and you go, I don't know. And it hangs in the closet for a couple days, weeks, months. And then you pull it out. You may not have used it right away, but you eventually used it. So give it a little bit of time and be patient. And avoid saying that your basic husbandry is enrichment. You should be using best practices for husbandry, okay? And some people, especially in zoos and big collections, will say, oh yeah, I'm doing this. I gave them, great food. And then, okay, yeah, that's really important, but it's basic husbandry. It's not enrichment. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. So don't give yourselves extra credit when it's really just husbandry. Okay. So organize. Organization makes things flow better. I am a list person. I am all about the calendar. If I don't have that, forget it. And if it's in here and I write it on paper and I lose the paper, God forbid. Okay? So organization makes things go better. And know what you have to work with. Be realistic about what you're doing. I have great ideas all the time, but I can't always make them happen. It may be a financial restriction. It may be a time restriction. It may be a personnel restriction for people who are on their own doing breeding. You may not have people to help you with it, so you've got to be realistic about it. And you need to organize people as well as opportunities. If you do have staff or you have other people that are helping out or working with you, make sure that they're organized and they're on board as well. Identify your resources. Okay, first of all, remember what you do is really cool, okay? You're out there and you're providing a really valuable service, but you need to convey that to others. If you convey your passion and your excitement to other people, you'll get support, okay? Those of you that are doing rescue or are working with sanctuaries, get that word out there. But you've got to have something to back it up. You've got to have that good program. You've got to do that education. Those of you that are breeding, when you run into that person that tells you, oh no, that's horrible what you do. No, it's not. But you've got to tell them why. And you've got to show them how you're doing it right. So you need to remember what you do is really cool and get that message out there. And it will hopefully bring you in some resources. Tap into your community. Let your community, in a safe way, not saying just open your doors and let the neighborhood in, excuse me, but let your community know what you're doing in a positive light, okay? You know, you don't invite the community over for a day when the cages aren't looking so fabulous, which we all know that does happen. But you make sure things are looking good and you're getting that positive picture across to the community. And free is always good. If somebody wants to donate something, oh, thank you so very much. It's a wonderful thing, and you can use it in your enrichment program. Okay, so these are the category guidelines. Again, list person here, need to have things spelled out for me. Dietary enrichment, it's at the top here, but it should be at the bottom. That's the last one that you want to use. That's the last thing that comes out of your toolbox, because you don't want to mess with diets. You don't want your diets to be changed up if you're in a breeding situation, because you know what works. I tip my hat and defer to those of you that know about nutrition. I mean, Mark speaks about nutrition as a wonderful resource. And those are the kind of things you need to remember if you're doing dietary. Social, tactile, visual, auditory, olfactory, training, and exercise. I put exercise in here because we forget that one a lot. And we end up with those birds that are a little bit chunky because we didn't pay attention to the dietary at the top. And we also didn't offer them the opportunity for exercise. So dietary, don't increase the total intake. If you're doing enrichment, if part of your enrichment program is dietary, don't increase your total food intake. It needs to be a supplement. Does that make sense? So you're not going, oh, here, have these cool, nuts. Well, if you're already feeding this level of food and then you add nuts to that level, and then you can't understand why you've got these kind of like hanging out on the perch doing nothing birds, it's because you're overfeeding, okay? You don't want to mess with what you're feeding. Remember naturalistic food sources. Giving them things that are totally out of their realm of possibility in the wild, what's the point? Does it make you feel better? Because you're giving them so many different things? It really needs to relate back to what they would be eating. Again, you may not be able to replicate exactly what they're eating in the wild or what they would be eating, but it needs to be pretty close. I've used the example before with zoos and gorillas. I find people all the time giving gorillas Jell-O for enrichment. I don't know. I don't think there's any Jell-O where the mountain gorillas live. There might be, but there might be a Jell-O stand out there. I'm not sure. But you've got to be careful that it does relate back. Melody, did you have a question?
I was just going to ask you if you could give for instance, for say, a macaw or for a cockatoo, is there something specific that you're pointing to as far as a food to keep it more natural and to stay away from? Is there something?
This is like a really lengthy discussion. Oh, Carol's making faces at me.
Repeat.
Okay, the question was, could I point to like a macaw or a natural food source? This is like a whole nother discussion. And we will have it, okay? Yes.
With the Jell-O thing, I'm a zookeeper, so
Yep.
Obviously I see that a lot. Do you not consider that as more being like a tactile, sort of like a tactile, so I mean if they found like a small mushroom that was
Right.
a little bit more.
The question was, he's a zookeeper. The question was, would the Jell-O be more of a tactile? And it absolutely would. It's not a dietary option. And I tease you guys. The primate keepers are really touchy.
I'm a bird keeper, so
But-
I'm not primate.
Tony, what is that on that table? Looks like what? No. Anybody else? What? Chicks. It's chicks. That's a Walsrode in Germany. This was their prep kitchen for their birds of prey. Good catch on that. Ew. Thank God our birds don't eat that kind of stuff, huh? Okay, so effective delivery systems. You don't have time if you've got a big aviary to be, here, look, this is for you. It doesn't always work, right? So you need to think of how you're going to deliver it. What's the best way to get that dietary enrichment out there? Is it goes in with the diet? Is it you've got, a feeder tray that goes in that's special for enrichment? But you've got to think about how you're going to deliver that. And prep assistance too. On those days when you want to offer dietary enrichment, people love to help. Okay? If you're not a companion parrot owner and you're dealing with a big aviary, people love to help. So play on that. Okay? Can I tell you how exciting it is for children to know that what is being fed was something that they created? It's huge. Oh, that's the thing. I cut up that apple, or apple's not, whatever. They cut it up, and that's really exciting. So look for some prep assistance if you're doing dietary. Okay, little investment. Oh, go back. How do I make the video go? It's a click. All right. This might be a technical glitch. My trusty assistant, Jason, will be running the video at this point.
It's actually beautiful, assistant.
Beautiful and lovely, lovely.
While you're technically
Technically challenged, yes.
You know, you talk about natural, and people are going crazy with their African brays and the palms,
Yeah.
and the palm oil.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're finding out that that's not a good thing.
Right. Well, because what we're doing, Jean, is we're over stimulating,
Right.
we're over naturalizing. So it is a balance. This is just simple, okay? This is a paper bag with a cardboard liner with fruit in it. It just takes a little bit more time. It's about, you know how they say location, location, location in real estate? It's presentation, presentation, presentation. This is a video from Tracy Aviary in Utah. And it just takes a little bit longer. For some of our animals, it's about prolonging that feed time, okay?
In all honesty, though, seriously, that might have took 3 minutes to make. That's not that, in the grand scheme of time, it's not really hurting anything either.
Right, right. It's a matter of, you know, again, it's easy.
Cute idea, actually.
To the next, he stole my clicker.
You want to go next?
Yeah, we can go to the next one. And it's another video challenge. Natural food sources and methods. Trying to get the animal to forage, right? That is the huge term, okay? Foraging. I got to offer foraging. It's really important. I know I'm supposed to be doing this. How do I do this? Thank you. This is, again, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't take that long, but it's a chiraco. And it's, you know, just a simple foraging activity that gets this bird moving. You could very easily have put those berries in a bowl. But again, this is from Tracy Aviary as well. And it's just a matter of getting the bird doing things that it might be doing in the wild.
Nice idea.
Robin,
Yes.
the sticks, are they like the skewers you use for kebabs?
Yeah, they're just wooden sticks. And again, you need to be creative. That was part of the qualifications at the beginning, right? For being the project manager, you need to be creative. So, all right. So social, your protocols, it really depends on your setting, what social means. In some settings, it's a flock setting, and you need to recognize that as that social piece. In some, it's pairs, just pairs. In some, you've got multiple birds in a home setting, and what's the social dynamic there? You need to fill it in, though. It needs to be filled in some way, because they are flock animals, okay? So whatever that may be at your facility or in your home, you need to be aware of what that dynamic is. And human interaction, again, in the home, it's up to you. Hopefully, you're letting them be birds, and we're not all snuggly and lovey and holding, and it's not necessary. Oh, I'm sorry. But it's not. I was in Australia and saw hundreds of cockatoos, and none of them were snuggling. Not one. And I kind of felt bad. I thought about going and hugging them, but I didn't. You need to be aware that they're birds. We bring them in our home and we anthropomorphize them. You just have to be careful, okay? And in a breeding setting, it depends on what your protocol is. How much human interaction is there going to be? And that's up to you. It's what you've had success with. But you need to be aware of it, okay? Tactile. With tactile opportunities, safety first. We don't want them getting caught. We don't want them getting tied up. You know, I always thought chain. Yep, chain's good. The curator at the LA Zoo, the bird curator, told me she never uses chain. She had a green wing hang itself. So she never uses chain. It's based on what you're comfortable with. Maintenance is really important. And again, in a big facility, that maintenance can be tough. So if you're providing opportunities, you need to go through and know that you have the time to maintain that enrichment if it's something that's going to stay in a cage for a while. Okay? And address all tactile opportunities. It's not just about the beak. It's about the feet. You've got to be aware of what you're offering for perching so that you don't end up with bumblefoot. You don't end up with bad foot conditions. Okay? And feathers. there's, everybody worries about those pluckers, right? Pluckers are bad. I gotta fix that, he's a plucker. Okay. What about feather quality? Let's talk about that. How are you gonna make sure that's good? And that part of that is tactile, okay? You need to be aware of what you're giving your bird and how's it affecting the feathers. Because if you've got breeding birds, right, you want birds that are in good feather. And for those of us that are really vain, that have companion parrots, we want them to look good. Okay? So the tactile opportunities are really important. Keeping your cool. I guess, Alicia, people were asking about a misting system in your talk. This misting system is used, I don't know how many of you know Wendy Craig. Wendy's a breeder down in Texas. And we were talking about her misting system, and she said, it's really easy, I bought the parts at Lowe's. Oh, okay, so it's not some big, difficult thing to do, but it's really important to have that opportunity. So I have all these parts, I have the pieces, and if anybody wants to come to the booth after the talk, we can talk about how inexpensive it can be and how easy to use. It's polytubing, the black tube that's there. It's just polytubing. There's this really neat hole punch tool that they sell at Home Depot or Lowe's, and you just poke it through and put the nozzle through, and then you just have to crimp the ends off. And you've got a misting system, and you haven't paid a fortune for it. And look at that, you can impact all these different cages in your aviary in one twist of the knob, okay? And you can make it specific to each cage. If you've got this cage with these birds that are all about the sunning and the misting, and that's really their thing, okay, you know what pressure you want. And if in the next cage these guys like the drip better, that's what you do. But you can take the nozzles in and out as well. So you can change them up depending on what your specific birds need or want. Placement's really important. The picture here on the left, that's a nest box on the top, so it's on the bottom. She said to me, we were really stupid at first. We put them all across the top, and then the nest boxes got all wet. That was not a good thing. So she and her husband modified, and they put them down on the bottom, and they have fans that help blow the mist in as well outside the cages. That's her husband up on top. What he did was he built a crawl space on top of the aviaries, and what he can do to do any maintenance on this is slide a board in, and then he goes in and he can fix whatever's up on top that needs to be addressed. And it's not this matter of I have to go in, I have to take the birds out, you don't have to do a lot of transfer and moving around. Okay. These are shower heads that she uses, and they're up on top of in the crawl space. They're not actually in the cage. The nice thing about these shower heads is they have rubber nozzles. The protrusions on the shower head there are rubber, so you're not getting as much metal and mineral buildup on that. You can just wipe them down, nice and easy to clean. And the sanitizing part is really important, obviously, for health purposes. So she uses those, and again, you can turn them to whatever works for your birds. And I know those of you who have heard me speak before, I also have a self-directed shower that is motion sensitive. And I'm more than happy to share that with you. So it's kind of an on-demand shower. You just have to be careful that you've got a timer on it. There are some birds that will just stand there and use it all day long. Yeah, that's not. It was designed for elephants originally, and elephants are really prone to foot problems, and so they will stand there and just keep waving, and then the shower comes on, and they wave again. So you just have to be careful that you've got a timer so that it's not a continuous thing. Visual, both inside and outside the enclosure. What are they seeing? What are you looking at? Is there a way you can provide some sort of enrichment across the board? In penguin, a lot of penguin, not aviaries, but penguin enclosures, they use disco balls and the lights with a spot on it, and they use lights and they go around the floor, and the penguins just think that's great. And it gets them moving as well. So if you've got birds that aren't moving a lot, that you want to be moving around their aviaries, how many of you have laser pointers? While you're going about doing your stuff, you got that laser pointer and you're moving it around, you're enriching. It's just kind of happening. It's really cool, right? Static versus dynamic. Is it something that you hang and it just stays that way? Or is it something outside the aviary? Do they have a view to outside? What are they seeing? With raptors, a lot of times weathering yards are by wooded areas, so they see deer, they see squirrel. You know, think about what your birds are seeing. I know, Josie, you guys have dividers between your cages, and that's very important in certain settings. For companion parrot owners, really think about moving those cages around if you can. What are they seeing? Are they looking at the same